가끔은 지령과 파우스트가 정말 가깝다는 생각을 합니다. 전령을 통해 도시의 이곳저곳을 부지런히 떠돌아다니는 지령이 호기심을 조차 움직이던 때를 떠올리게 하니까요. 이제는 그런 순간을 멈출 때도 되었죠. 지령을 쫓으면 도시의 뜻은 자연히 깨달을 수 있기 마련입니다.
If you insist. Greetings and salutations, everyone. I'm Ekamac. This is Limbus Company. These guys have been out for a week, which means that I can just jump straight to the dispenser and get my hands on them. I even remembered to get a whole bunch of ego shards in advance this time. Pinky Apprentice Spiders... Wait, no. The House of Spiders Pinky Apprentice.
소생은 아직 별의 이름을 잊기에 부족합니다. 언젠가의 나를 위해 주인님을 보필하며 제 스스로를 계속해서 벼려낼 뿐이죠.
And also Gregor. Lobotomy Ego Lamp. It's kind of disappointing that it lacks the hammer though.
세간의 인식과 달리 다음 기회라는 건 보통 찾아오지 않더군. 그래서 이번엔 뭐라도 해볼 생각이야. 뒤늦은 후회는 추한 감정만 남길 뿐이더라고.
He's actually looking at a little digital display about the big bird if you look carefully. So yeah, we have those two. Let's check out how what I'm saying is, let's have a look at how they uptie and their uptie stories. So at the moment, 2 plus 4, so rolls a maximum of 10, inflict a little burn, inflict a little sinking. Inflict 1 sinking count, 1 sinking, deal 30% of coin's final damage as blunt. When I say not the hammer, I don't mean the invisible ghost hammer, the diffraction ego. I'm talking about the big bird lamp hammer. Wick of burned feathers. Gain lamp up to 8 stacks. For every stack gain, take HP damage equal to 1% of HP. Apply 1 haste next turn to bind on self divided by 3 other allies with the lowest speed. Once per turn, rounded down. He rolls a 1 to 6 in speed and has 5 defense level. He is probably an absolute tank. 2 plus 1, 2 plus 2. And the ego is the stuff that I'm doing. So if we uptie him, speed range drops to 1 to 5. Intense stare, 0 range. If any of the following conditions are met, coin power plus... Wait. Gain lamp, so he still has lamp access. When chaining skills, this unit can redirect attack skill targeting to itself regardless of speed in focused encounters only. When gaining haste, gain clash power up instead once per turn. For every ally wearing ego, gain 1 defense level up to a maximum of 3. When an ally dies, gain pierce damage next turn. And lamp becomes dazzle. Okay, back to the upties. If unit speed is 1 or slower, or the target has dazzle, gain coin power. That's actually not too difficult to do with how his speed is dropping, isn't it? Gain bind next turn. If any of the following conditions are met, clash power plus 2. 6, 12, 14. 1 or slower, or the target has dazzle. Inflict 2 sinking count. Inflict a sinking. Deal 30% of coin's final damage as blunt. Inflict 2 burn and inflict 1 burn count. 2 times resonance. At combat start, gain a lamp. If an enemy has dazzle, heal 3 SP. Apply Guardians of the Forest next turn to the ally with the earliest deployment order among those who are not this unit, already Guardian of the Forest, or cannot heal SP due to conditions, such as panic or corrosion. And for the third uptie, he drops to 1 to 4 speed. Salvation for those enchanted by the lamp. Gain coin power and deal extra damage for the target being 1 or slower or having dazzle. If the target has dazzle, all coins become unbreakable and gain 3 clash power. So let's consider this. It rolls a 16. With this conditional, it rolls 5 on everything, so that becomes 15, 19. It could also become 22 if the target has dazzle. Inflict sinking count, inflict burn and sinking. If the target is 25% or less HP, or the target is dazzle, deal 60% more damage. If that is dazzle, then also deal 60% gloom damage. Yeah, Big Bird has always had a thing about killing things at low HP. Intense Stare, 0 range. 3 plus 4. 3 plus 3. So let's see, at the moment it's 15. This makes a 16. And support passive. 3 times Wrath Resonance. Turn end the following ally with the earliest deployment order among those with negative effects. Gain aggro. Gain blunt damage.
모은 것까지도 아주 선명하게 보여. 이때껏 볼 수 없었던 것도, 어두워 보이지 않았던 것도 전부. 테스트는 이대로 종료하자고. 이 예고와 기프트를 동시에 사용할 만큼의 적성은 내게 있는 것 같으니까.
The deceased employee's corpse has been collected and transported to a designated site within the research facility. The LCE's death certificates are honest and straightforward. These cold, motionless documents do not mince words as they record facts, and nothing but the facts. And their facts don't need to bother themselves with convincing the reader. Take, for example, the word corpse. What other interpretation could it possibly have? I read the document again and again, but its meaning stays the same. Excuse me, Gregor, do you have a minute? You're... Who are you again? Don't think I've seen you around here before. I'm from HR Management Team 2. My name is... Oh, I remember you now, sort of. If you don't mind, please save the small talk for later and get straight to the point. What do you want? I've been informed that most of your research personnel have been killed, Gregor. I slid the death certificate into my death drawer. Right. Yi Sing is dead. He died to lure certain death away from me. But his decision couldn't have been more rational. I find it interesting that he actually has... He clearly has an ego gift making up for his lack of arm. Because that's a thing that's been across all of Gregor's IDs. Something's weird with his arm. In this one, Leo Association gave him a prosthetic arm, if you pay attention. His heir, Gregor, doesn't even have an arm anymore because it was taken. This one, it appears to... I want to say it's the Fairy Festival gift, which would be Wingbeat. Well, I floundered, letting the emotions get the better of me. He exercised reason and came up with something more logical than that ridiculous plan I'd thrown together. And his decision to overrule me saved many more lives than I would have. I heard about Yi Sing, that he raised his ego attunement level to unsafe levels to save you, Gregor. LCE Ego Lantern specializes in luring its targets. Yi Sing's decision could not have been more logical. He had the aptitude to maximize that ego gear's attunement level. I had the expertise to repair the facility faster than anyone there could. Yeah, it's thanks to him I had enough time to finish the repairs. Every death is weighed for its worth. A noble death, an honorable death. Those are valuable top-shelf deaths. There are cheap ones too, often accompanied by crude expressions like croaking. The scale that weighed his death read sacrifice. One might wonder what meaning this would hold for the deceased, but this price tag is for those who remain. It exists to give them a reason to stop grieving, or a reason to live on. I know you're still mourning your losses and everything, but we can't leave those seats vacant forever, you understand? Well, I suppose you can't. With that out of the way, I thought I might come to you for some advice and ask if you have anyone to recommend for the positions. I don't. They'd already be here if I did. To be honest, I thought the hiring notices would have already been posted by now. There's a lot of other stuff to take care of first, like finishing the facility repairs. Oh, also here, this document's for you, a message from the higher-ups. It says you are to take some time off. 3 months, give or take, paid leave. Sounds like that's more than enough time to get my thoughts sorted. So, 3 months of paid leave it was. I accepted the document, collected my rather meagre belongings, and packed them neatly into my suitcase. But I wasn't sure where to go from there. I didn't like crowded places, and the city was nothing if not teeming with people in every corner. Where was I to go in a world like this anyway? Naturally, memories of those who were once with me, in spite of myself, returned to answer that question. Someone had once butted into a conversation regarding Uyu Corp's Great Lake and said the shores of Escor also had quite a pleasant character to them. That someone then continued, saying that T-Core isn't such a bad place either for those interested in technology. When I asked what that drab urban landscape had to offer me, he replied that observing their innovative inventions often did spark flashes of inspiration. Now that I'm really thinking about it, perhaps I might need a little more time than 3 months. 3 years, no, more. Our lives, independent as they might seem, are always accompanied by the presence of others. It's only natural they'll all eventually come back to me. The memories of the dead, regardless of what triggers them to return. So instead of searching for a reason to stop grieving, I decided to search for a way to get over them. This isn't you, Gregor. Why don't we... What, are you goading into retorting, what am I really, or something? I've long since excluded such anachronistically adolescent lines of thought from contaminating my verbiage ever since I first took my steps. Tried to avoid such poor choice of words if you'd like to convince me otherwise. Listen! Tragically for him, I saw little to no improvement in his subsequent word choices. Instead of letting him ramble on, I placed 2 documents on the table. First, a request to be included in the mission, and second, a letter of resignation, freshly inked as I had no reason to carry such a thing before. What is wrong with you? You know there isn't a single other corporation in the city other than this one that'll hire someone like you. I'm well aware how stubbornly the stigma of being a Fallen Wings remnant clings to me, how it diminishes my employment prospects in the eyes of corporations. But am I not a rather excellent talent despite all that, even for someone like you? I'm quite certain I'm competent enough to make a living for myself even if I were to end up leaving the company. Besides, letting me go isn't the only option on the table, you know. Keep reading. And that was my one and final chance to use that card. The company now knows I have no qualms about putting forth such a binary choice. Well, I don't think there's anything else to talk about. Let's adjourn this meeting. Wait, you can't just leave me to report this to the higher-ups. What am I even supposed to say to... Relay this conversation exactly as it happened. The facts and nothing but the facts, with no room for subjectivity. As expected, they did not sign my letter of resignation. A big scary beast lives in this forest! That statement isn't entirely incorrect, but allow me to point out some errors. First is that, while there are plenty of big scary beasts in here, this is no forest. Oh, no need to explain the concept of metaphors to me. Well, I've never been much of a lectiophile. I do know that a more appropriate metaphor for this research facility is a cave, not a forest. Don't worry, everyone will be safe as long as I'm here. I regret that I did not, out of some prophetic insanity, decide to wear this ego 27 hours ago, because I would have had a perfectly logical retort to that statement had I done so. I see a perilous child. Let's protect them. That's no child. That's an adult. Adults must learn to look after themselves. Overprotectiveness is... Boss! Sorry about that. Are you sure this is a good idea? Why? Isn't it plain enough? Torn and tattered fabric of space shimmers in every corner of the room, courtesy of T022107. Despite that, no corner is left untouched by the gaze. I watch as T022007's every move as it zips around me, and his form turns into a blur as it travels between the tears in space at incredibly high velocity. I watch with the myriad eyes and the singular piercing eye that can see everything. I swing the invisible hammer and block its approach from one side, fire a predictive shot to the other, piercing the abnormality with the crossbow bolt. Glad I thought to reshape the hammer into a crossbow. Oh, that's how he did it. Apparently you can just reforge your ego. That's kind of cool. Oh man, imagine reforging some Aleph equipment. As I don't have the aptitude to wield two hammers at once. The better option is to switch between them and use only one at a time. Concluding test now. Boss, are you sure about partaking in the mission? Never been more certain. Oh, but don't you even think about tagging along. Because there's a beast in that forest. Well, at least that answers my question all this time. So, should we get this final uptie? This also adds speed on the target to conditionals. And a burn and sinking and burn conditional. And increases the potency of the sinking and the burn. This adds the speed conditional and the sinking and burn conditional. 3 sinking count. 2 sinking, 2 burn count. That's actually pretty strong. It means that I almost feel like this might be a burn ID, but unfortunately it's been outmatched in terms of burn IDs by his Fire Fist. Raise the base power to 5. Add the speed conditional. If target is sinking plus burn coin power. If target is defeated or if it had dazzle, gain plus coin boost next turn. So this is clearly so it can be used instead of Gregor. Inflict burn count and 3 sinking count. And add a gloom type to his defense skill and raise the coin power. 3 plus 9 becomes 3 plus 10. Bind on self divided by 2, haste next turn. To get more than one bind, he would have to use his base skill twice though. Gain lamp for every 2 gloom resonance to a maximum of 3. That's cool. If an enemy has dazzle, gain SP. Apply Guardians of the Forest to an ally. Alright then. It's time to check it out. House of Spiders, Pinky Apprentice, Sinclair. 3 plus 3 gain 2 poise count, but also gain some poise. And inflict some bleed. Gain 3 poise, gain a poise count. Unfocused volley with 3 attack weight. Honestly, for an Uptie 1 identity, that's pretty strong. At 25 poise, change this skill to swerve. Gain 6 poise at the start of the turn, and then gain 1 poise count on top of that. Gain shield equal to Moonlit Azure Blade, and 4 poise count. Oh. You kind of want to just skip over that part, don't you? But the downside is that 1 poise per turn. He might have trouble maintaining. I feel like there's going to be a spot where it's going to be very difficult to work with, where he's just as likely to lose his poise. But anyway, I think that's it. Yeah, any excess of poise gained past 25 is converted to Moonlit Azure Blade, to a maximum of 20 stacks. If we did not equip attack skills or ego skills, heal SP and gain slash power up. That's cool. Uptie him, go from 3 to 5 to 3 to 6. Chain strike. At 3 poise, gain 3 poise count. So enough to break even. At 6 plus poise, gain coin power. 2 poise, gain 1 haste next turn, but only once per turn. At 6 plus poise, base power plus 1. On crit, heads hit, reuse this coin once per skill. Well, that's just going to make life more inconvenient, isn't it? Gain Pride Resonance plus 1 poise. At 20 plus poise, gain poise count. The Orthodox Blade, Chain Strike, Nameless Slash. Gain 2 shield for every stack and deal extra damage on crit for every stack. So up to 20% and 40 shield. I suppose that's to make up for him being a negative defense level. It's been a while since we've seen that. Uptie 3, here's the story. 4 to 6 speed. That's a surprisingly decent range. Add his skill 3, 4-star Slayer. Deal % damage for every excess attack weight beyond the number of actual targets. Okay, I think this is a less mouthy version of what happens with Mersault's skill 3, when it loses the clash at least. At 20 plus Azure Blade, convert all skills into unbreakable coins. Coin power plus 1 for every poise, base power plus 1 for every Azure Blade, 5 poise. So this can actually roll pretty stupidly, like, Arkor Hong Lu. Deal extra damage on a crit, inflict bleed on a heads hit crit, deal extra coin final damage as slash damage. But gain attack weight for every Moonlit Azure Blade and consume attack Azure Blade for every attack weight gained. Chain Strike raises the coin power. Nameless Slash raises the base power. Add the support passive. The ally with a faster speed heals SP and gains shield when starting combat with a defense skill.
주인께서 내리신 간만의 일거리입니다. 사사받은 월화 정도가 부끄럽지 않을 수 있도록 이 기회를 소중히.
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Master's corridor, where only on the rarest of occasions is the silence broken by the aged wooden floor that creaks under the weight of our tabby-wrapped souls. Somewhere within it, a clock hangs, and I hear it voicing the passage of time with unerring regularity. The sound would never cease no matter what may come, even if someone were to die here in this place. As though to remind my humble self that this life of mine is waning with every second that passes. Today, however, today is a day worth rejoicing. It is the first time in a long while that my master has deigned to impart upon me The techniques of the swordcraft I have longed to practice and digest. I cannot deny I am overjoyed, yet I am also filled with trepidation. For I might blunder and vex my master, and even the slightest indignation would mean that I must desperately block and evade the wrathful edge of the blade that seeks to make me pay. That being said, for all my shortcomings, it would appear that on this day my master has again decided to simply take the measure of my sword arm without reprimanding me. Is it because I have finally managed to become the flawless imitation of the one I meant to simulate? No, that is simply not possible. Perhaps it began around the same time I started to suspect that my master has no care for me whatsoever, but I am no longer offered any admonition, much less advice. Outside of these rare days of instruction, I am taught nothing new, nor are my former stance corrected. The past lessons that had daunted the bumbling new pupil that I once was, now only make me long for them, and often do I surprise myself when I realize how fondly I remember those days. Today's the brief, and it couldn't indeed have been briefer. Lesson ends without a single exchange of words, and this insignificant self of mine supports and escorts my ailing master back to the quarters. The tenacious shadow that has fallen upon my master's health is not a guest of but a day or two. At times like this, however, a renewed pang of pity strikes my humble self, if only for a moment. Though I have been scarred by countless words that sought to lacerate my soul, the sight of my master thus broken seems to make the long years of the painful past melt away without my noticing. As my master withdraws further, I find my humble self spending more and more days alone. I sit upon the wooden floor of our corridor's courtyard, taking in the view in silence. This quiet perch is the perfect lookout from which I may observe the other nurse fathers and their wards with unobstructed vision. The first thing I hear is the shattering of glass thrown in ire. I turn my gaze and predictably I see the thumb's nurse father and apprentice. This cacophony of shattering objects and angry shrieks tends to come from their side every time the apprentice fails to humor the nurse father. Truth be told, the nurse father, more often than not, flies into bouts of rage even when the child has committed no real fault, only to praise later and make a pleased fuss over the apprentice's most trivial acts. Mood swings is the appropriate term for such behaviors, I believe. That one over there is the middle's child. She's learned today, it seems. Her nurse father often returns with a car trunk full of things. Perhaps yet another homecoming of such nature looms on the horizon. Whether alone or with her nurse father, the girl's attitude and conduct hardly change. She usually has her nose buried in illustrated books or watches motion pictures that emit noises that offend the eardrums. The only difference is that when in each other's company, they exchange idle chatter as they read and watch those books and videos together. Come to think of it, she likes to pester the other children to read what she enjoys, begging them to give it a chance. Yet the contents of her favorite distractions are hardly worthy of consideration. And when I voiced this outright, she swore she'd feed you till you get what a masterpiece it is, and has since been relentlessly chasing after me, causing me quite an inconvenience. I must avert my gaze from her today, lest our eyes meet and she interprets it as interest in her pastime. With all that time wasted on trivial pleasures, I wonder when she finds the time to improve her form and train her swordplay. But as she does at times notice my scrutiny despite how far this courtyard is, she must be doing something akin to training at the very least. And there at the gates, crossing the threshold with a sack soaked and dripping with blood, is the ring's apprentice. The child must have been collecting ingredients, corpse parts to be exact. That apprentice has also been rather busy of late, with the nurse father's so-called art critique approaching soon. As the nurse father rarely steps out of the ring's corridor and seldom socializes with the apprentice, I once approached the child hoping for a conversation, wondering if we shared the same kind of plight. Only to be told that the ring's nurse father is simply immersed in work, lost in the height of artistic passion that the apprentice seeks to emulate. Though the maestro has stepped down from position within the ring, The fascination with the beauty remains. That is an inspiration for my artwork too. I remember the child telling me with barely concealed exultance. My humble self could hardly relate, yet somehow I felt almost grasp the reason that the child would find joy in it, and I'm quite sure I nodded along. Lastly, those two people walking closely together are the Index. For all the time I've lived under the roof of the house, I've barely traded words with them. How should I put this? The Index is Apprentice. She is somewhat of an inscrutable character. Perhaps she fears anyone and everyone save her nurse father, and she always appears anxious about what others are thinking. Her eyes darting from corner to corner, she never misses an opportunity to announce her laudation for her nurse father, making any attempt at conversation arduous indeed. Kind of trying to cram all this into one paragraph, aren't you? As for her nurse father, no, better I refrain from speaking of him. If he possesses any human mind at all, it is one my humble self finds impossible to fathom, and I hesitate to judge with haste that which I am not acquainted with. Even so, he appears to be on close terms with his apprentice, at least from what I can see. No, this too is best left unelaborated. Such observation will bring me no benefit. That night, I was entrusted with a duty for the first time in a long while. Some call it homework, others assignment or simply errand as they carry out their duties one after another. To me, however, receiving a duty is proof of my nurse father's attention. As the stream of service is dried to a trickle, then a drought, I welcome every work and am eager to see it done. Unlike the other apprentices, my lowly self has never borne a name within the Pinky, yet I walk the path that one day might lead me to inherit the title of Dehui Star. Alone, I tighten my grip on the hilt of my blade, cleaving the cold air in the likeness of the sword form that is said to have been wielded by the one true apprentice of all nurse fathers and the fingers to which they belong. The hilt clicks and rattles at the beginning and end of each trail of the blade, much like the tick-tock of the clock's second hand that spurs me to hurry. And in between, I find my humble self thinking, my life will soon come to an end. What is the point of dreaming this fleeting dream? I know I will never meet the end point, just as the spiral never manages to punch through and reach the other side. This won't do. These unfocused thoughts will only serve to obstruct my mind on the way of the blade. Such ponderment only distances me from attainment, for the quest for interest and the pursuit of the achievement repel each other. So I shall simply continue to rehearse and demonstrate, until my blade can more closely, more indistinguishably simulate the authentic original. Who knows? This might be the day. Today, my master might come out here and sit on this wooden floor to watch me train. Even this is an indolent state of mind. My master is always watching me. I must believe that. I must. Stronger, sharper. That is how I must temper myself, so I may carry out all tasks acting in my master's stead. Let my humble self be guided by the very first sentiment that arises when I look upon my master. That alone will allow my actions to stay true to the virtue of humanity. Perhaps with perseverance, someday, I may yet become someone who walked the way that befits the virtue of humanity, even if I had come to a stop without reaching its end. Alright, so I don't feel like going into a training mission just to show off their skills, sorry. Last time we got bogged down by tutorial nonsense after all. The final Uptie. Raise the max on coin power gained. On crit heads hit, gain 1 haste next turn. Once per turn. On use base power increased to maximum of 2. On hit, gain poise count. On hit, inflict bleed. At 10 plus Moonlit Azure Blade, reuse this coin. Okay, so you have 2 reuses for heads hits, it seems. Hopefully they aren't... So assume this. The first one, if it's a crit, reuse the coin. If the first one isn't a crit, but you do have the Moonlit Azure Blade, you reuse it. If the second is a crit, then they reuse the coin. So it checks for Azure Blade after it checks for a crit. Ooh, a raise to the base and the coin power. Deal 50% more damage. Consume 5 Azure Blade instead of 10. Deal 70% on a crit. Inflict 5 bleed. Change his guard skill to a pride skill with 3+10. Swerve becomes a pride skill. So it just struck me that he's really someone that wants that Uptie 4, not that there's anyone who disagrees with Uptie 4, but... Hang on. Oh wait, no, it's the support skill, never mind. For some reason I thought starting combat with a defense skill equipped, but he's gonna have trouble doing that with 2 times res. Oh wait, no, it's this thing, and it's not tied to his resonance, so it's actually fine, my bad. Anyway, let's see if I can...
저치의 아비들은 잘 이해되지 않지만 간혹 부럽다는 생각이 들기도 하는군요. 미호나 고우나 모종의 관심일 터니.
I want to see if Middle Ishmael shows up in any of these.
주인께선 하루가 또 절반이 넘게 지나갔군요. 주인께 아침 문안을 올려야겠습니다. 환영받지는 못하지만 엄지의 자식은 또 제 아비에게 험한 꼴을 당한 모양이군요. 잘못을 어미 꾸짖는 것은 중요할 테지만 정도가 과하면 그것이 과연 예일지. 저런 밖에 내팽개쳐졌는데도
He doesn't have the mark of Cain, though.
사람의 속이란 정말 소생의 검이 비록 한없이 거미집의 아비들은 위로부터 저마다의 과제를 부름이라면 한 번의 선으로 시연합니다. 오롯한 검의 길에 주인께서는 아직도 소생을 아직 소지의 자격을 얻지 못함에는 이유가 시연은 어떠셨나요? 소생의 쓸모는 여기까지였나 봅니다. 소생은
Okay, that's weird. Because she showed up in the trailer, I thought that we'd get a cut-in from Ishmael, but I guess not.
골목 밤거리의 빛이
Anyhow,
세상 하나라.
until next time, guys. Take care. I'll see you all around.
예상치 못한 일은 아니었어. 시설 복구는 완료되었지만 당장 연구를 재개할 수는 없을 거야. 안정화에도 시간이 걸릴 테고 빈자리도 다시 채워야 할 테지. 이번 작전만 끝나면 시설을 새로 설계해야겠어. 거미줄이라. 그래. 배운 건 써먹어야지.